Hi, everybody, and thank you very much for coming out tonight, and special thanks to the family for having me tonight. My name is Martina, and my topic tonight is don't jeopardize your growth, 4 key must-dos to build a solid and scalable organization. Before we dive into the topic, I would like to introduce myself a little bit more so that you actually know where the things I'm talking about tonight are coming from. I'm in the HR business for more or less 10 years now. I started as a HR consultant. I've been with Rocket Internet in 2011 before I joined Project A as a founding member, and my most recent role was as a director people and organization at nu3, where I had the whole HR lifecycle basically on my plate. Right now I'm out there as a freelancer helping especially startups to build organizations that are able to manage their growth. I think when you go out there and you ask very successful companies, very successful organizations, what their secret is, what their key success factor is, you probably get a wide range of answers, right? What you probably won't hear is something like, well, we established this system of micromanagement, punishment, and fear amongst our team, and this is how we got leader in our market. But actually, there is one thing that that successful organizations have in common, and that is empowerment. So making sure that you create a team of people that are out there acting in your and in your business's interest. But how to empower is nothing that you just can give. You would just say, just go do whatever you want to do, what you want to make sure that everybody's acting in your interest, right? So 2 things that you want to be aware of. First of all, you want to set up the right structures and the right framework. So everybody in your organization has to know where the journey is going to. What are the goals that we are heading to? You want to make sure everybody knows how feedback on performance is given, how performance reviews are done, to move in like a safe space. And of course, it's not enough to set up just the right structures and the right framework. You have to make sure with the same importance that you have the right mindset within your company. And when I speak of the right mindset, especially when it comes to startup, I talk about the eagerness to learn. I talk about embracing change, and of course also to the willingness to deal with mistakes in a very constructive way, meaning that you're basically, and most importantly, learning out of them. Why is it so important that you empower your people? As your business grows, as a founder or as a CEO, you will just not be able to take care of all topics. So you have to make sure that you have people in your company that are actually driving and pushing this topic proactively, because otherwise it will stop you from growing. And of course, when we're talking about empowered people, you have to set up the right culture for them, right? And often when, especially now as a freelance consultant, as I said, I often talk to entrepreneurs, to founders in their very early stages, and when I ask them what they think is their most important HR topic that they have at the plate right now, and I think many HR people amongst you will agree. Usually I hear, well, it's recruiting. It's recruiting, that's the first thing I really have to do. It's the first topic that I have to tackle. And not only that my HR heart is breaking a little bit more every time I hear that answer, it's also that unfortunately, it's not the right approach. Why is it not the right approach? First of all, without having a value-driven culture where people share and agree on the same values. There will be no agility, and especially there will be no speed. And on the other hand, culture is there. There is no, you cannot put culture on hold, right? It's there from the beginning, and as a founder of your company, you want to make sure that you're the one that is shaping that culture, because otherwise somebody else will do it, and that might not be in your interest. So if you get this, so if you have this in your mind, and if you're really shaping and developing a strong and value-driven culture within your organization, you really make sure that you actually unleash the power of empowered people, right? Because then everybody knows and is agreeing on the same values, and is actually able to focus on getting things done, on working and achieving great projects. So far, we talked more or less about the environment that we want to set up for our organization. So the next topic I would like to talk about is high-performance teams, because this is what you actually want to create when it comes to set up your teams. And when I speak of high-performance team, I mean people that are sharing the same values, that are heading towards the same goals in a very motivated way. And I think to better understand what it means to build, and of course also to retain high-performance teams, it's good to have a look on professional sports. So let's pretend we are a soccer team, so our club, the family club. We are playing Champions League, I'd say. So we are out there and we have some positions in our team that are actually missing, that we have to fill. So as I said, usually the first answer is hiring, recruiting. So we are the family team, so we're pretty well known. We have a good reputation on the market. We are able to attract good people. Our financial situation is pretty good, so we are ready to pay decent salaries. But what is it that we're going to discover when we go out on the transfer market? We will discover that there are not enough people that actually bring the whole package at once, and that are ready to bring in their full potentials from day one. And the other thing that we are probably going to encounter is that prices are crazy high, right? So it's pretty much the soccer transfer market pretty much is like hiring in the Berlin labor market at the moment. So there is not enough for everybody, and prices are just crazily high. So what to do about this? So this is where the next step comes in, and actually I think this is the step that is getting more and more important, and I think at one point will be even more important than recruiting, and this is actually developing the full potential of your people. Get potential in there and make sure that they are able to achieve what you want them to achieve. So let's go back to our soccer team example. So we have this great guy in our team, a striker, pretty clear what he should do, strike the ball into the goal. And now you're thinking about, okay, he's pretty good, but not the best as that he could be. So how about developing him? So when you think about developing like professional sports people, you would not go out there and say, okay, just go on the field and strike all day long. Try it again and again and again, and then you will be the best. This is not how it's going to work. But what you want to do is to really analyze what kind of abilities this person should have. So probably when we come back to our striker, so probably we should train him in fitness, right? Because we want him to keep the pace over the whole 90 minutes of the match. And then again, we might want to train him in accuracy so that he actually is able to get the ball into the goal. And last but not least, you might want to think about mental training. So just imagine the stadium full of people, everybody's yelling, I don't know, 40,000 people that are, as I said, that are yelling and chanting. You want to make sure that your striker still is able to focus on what he's in for, and is able to execute. And basically, it's the same when it comes to employees. You want to make sure that they are good in every individual discipline that they are that they're up to. And not only will developing your people help you in somehow recruiting the right or having the right people in your team, but it's also the first and very important step to retain them, right? Because you don't want to just build up, but you want to make sure that you retain your employees. And last but not least, when it comes to high performance teams, you want to make sure that they are organized. That sounds pretty basic, but I think that is something that many, especially startups that are growing, are challenged with. It's to make sure that everybody knows its individual goal, what is my impact on winning the game, and what is my role in the game. So again, we have the striker with his pretty clear role, and let's take somebody else like the goalkeeper. So it's pretty different roles, likewise important, and of course you should appreciate both the same way. But if it's like a normal game, of course everybody's up to winning, but still they will stay in their position. They know what to do, and they're doing what they're doing best. So there's only one situation. So the game has to be won to stay in the match, and the last minute of the game is counting. Then maybe everybody gets up front, also the goalkeeper, to try to strike. But in every other situation, everybody is on his position, doing what he or she can do best. And why is it so important to have that, especially when you are in a phase of growth with your business? When you don't have enough resources within your team, it's not only that the resources that are actually missing are going to jeopardize your growth, but it's also when you're in this hiring process, you will keep many resources that could be invested in something else are actually bound in this hiring process. So far, we quite have some big projects to tackle, right? We wanna implement empowerment. We wanna make sure that we set up an inspiring culture. We wanna make sure that we are building high performance teams. So, as a founder, that is a lot on your plate, and probably you will not be able to really stay ahead of all these topics, especially in the phase of growth. So that is why my last but not least topic comes up. You want to make sure that you have professional HR expertise within your company, and I strongly advise to get somebody in pretty soon, because even so, we don't like it too much, but we have to face the situation that when actually a company is growing, the little speedboat that you had at the beginning that you could maneuver quite easily through the sea is growing more and more maybe to a cruise ship, and it's much harder to steer it, right, and to get it where you want it to get. So if you lose track and your ship is actually going into the wrong direction, and you get somebody on board way too late to help you to go back on your actual track, then it will cost you a lot of resources, a lot of time, and a lot of money to actually make the turnaround and get back where you actually wanted to be. So to put it in a nutshell, you want to make sure that you have people in your company that are empowered, that go out there, that find the right projects, the right topics that really brings your company further. You wanna foster and you wanna make sure that you have a inspiring and value-driven culture. You wanna set up a high-performance team, and last but not least, make sure that you get some kick-ass HR support. So, and I think with having all of this in mind, you won't jeopardize your growth. Thank you very much.
So now I just want to introduce Marie and address the next topic, and then afterwards, guys, you're welcome to stay. There we go.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Yep. All right, hi. First of all, thanks for having me. A few words on me. I'm Marie, I work for Billie, one of the most successful fintechs in Germany, maybe Europe, maybe the world, soon to take over the world, really. I used to work for Google, after that Soundcloud, and what I'm going to talk to you about today is, similar to Martina, the topic of culture. Why it's important, how you can go about identifying and building a culture at your own organization. And I'm going to give you a few examples, practical examples, from where I currently work, Billie, and how we choose to live and go about nurturing and really nourishing the culture that we strive for. So first of all, here a quick quote from Peter Drucker from 2001, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." This really summarizes the essence of what culture is all about and why it's important. Naturally, many founders, business people, HR people, think about strategy first, right? That's what your organization is based on. That's what you're all striving towards, is a joint vision, and the strategy that you apply is supposed to get you there. However, important factor that can ruin all of that for you is culture. You've seen it in many different organizations, and take the Enrons of this world, the Lehman Brothers, etc. And what this really shows is that if you don't take into account how a company does business, the what it wants to do really can become impossible. Another quote here: "The culture of a workplace, which in essence is its values, norms, practices, has a huge impact on happiness and success." So happiness is also one of the first things that people think of when they think about a company culture. They might think of Google as the happy campus feel organization where people just love to work. But as I mentioned before, it really comes down to the success of the organization. Coupling your culture with your strategy, making sure they're aligned, and also work for the environment that your organization finds itself in is crucial to actually achieving what you've set out for your company to do in the long run. All right. Now, we understand why culture is important. Now we also want to understand how you can actually build your organizational culture. So here's a few steps. There's 3 in total. I'll start with the first 2. The first question you got to ask yourself is, who are you already? You might be a small organization. Once you hit about 50, this is when it gets tough to actually find common ground with everyone. People might not know each other personally anymore because the organization is growing. They might not talk to everyone in the organization on a day-to-day basis. So defining who you already are is not only changing as the organization grows, but becomes more and more important as you become bigger. Think about it really as a person. So I'll show you in a second one of the frameworks you can apply to identifying what your culture is right now and where you want to go. But it really is just this organism that is measurable and that you want to shape for the future. So ask yourself where you are now and where you want to be in the future. An important thing to keep in mind there is to figure out what's also special about you. There's a danger of trying to figure out what a corporate culture should be in general. But with that approach, you will definitely miss what's special about your organization. It might be things that you think are maybe not that great, maybe we're a little bit boring, maybe we're a little bit bureaucratic. But as you've seen with many employer branding initiatives out there, sometimes that can be exactly what makes your culture special and what makes people identify with your organization. So here, a little bit of an academic approach to corporate culture. You might have heard of Hofstadter before. He's usually known for his culture dimensions in terms of national cultures. So how you can actually compare maybe a French to a German culture on 5 different dimensions. Here, we have 6 different dimensions applied to corporate culture. Again, same, you might have heard of before with personality types for different people. Here we have dimensions on which you can rate where your company is at right now. For example, are you more means-oriented or more goals-oriented? Goals-oriented would mean your organization is more focused on the goals it wants to achieve rather than the means it applies to get there. And figuring out where you are right now and whether that's a good fit according to your strategy, as well as the environment you find yourself in, is the first step to figure out where you actually want to go. And then in terms of figuring out not just where you are right now, but the type of organization and culture you want to have in the future, it's important to keep in mind, as I said, not just does it fit your strategy, does it fit the environment that you find your organization in, but also is it achievable? To put it in simple terms, imagine a person, maybe me, who is who she is right now. And then I decide that I want to become the greatest pianist in the world. Big task. I don't even know how to play the piano apart from like basic tune that everyone would be able to cover. So that might be a really noble and idealistic goal for me in terms of personal development, but it's quite unreasonable and maybe even unachievable. So making sure that the gap between where you are right now in terms of your corporate culture and where you want to get to is not too big, so it actually still remains achievable and in line with your identity as an organization as a whole is crucial. Another way companies use to define their corporate cultures are values. You might have seen these before. So on the example of Google and Facebook, you see these essentially value statements. You can also see differences in terms of like how they went about them. On the Google side, quite a few. Quite long, Facebook, shorter. The purpose of that really is to give employees as well as the outside world indicators of behaviors and the hows of how the company wants to do business that will give you an idea of what the organization is all about. So for example, the first one for Google is focus on the user and all else will follow. On the other hand, Facebook, focus on the impact. So it already gives you a very different feel of what the organization might be like. So again, for you, there's different approaches you can take to identifying where your corporate culture is at right now and where you want to take it. Use value statements, use Hofstadter's dimensions or other tools. You really have to find the one that works for you. So now, once you figured out where your culture is right now and where you want to get it to, how do you actually do that? Now, I will get to a few practical examples in a second. But above all, the message I want to convey to you today is that you need to practice what you preach. And repeat and repeat and repeat over and over and over again the type of behavior that you want to embed in your culture. So it's not enough to set it up once, have some sort of mission statement, put it on the wall, and hope everyone will get it and live it. It's about repeating it and repeating it over and over again and engaging everyone to live it on a day-to-day basis. Now, how do you actually do that? It always starts with the founders, the execs. Why? They are the main role models that everyone looks to and adjust their behavior according to. And that's also where conflict often arises. If the company has a certain standard of how they want to go about things, but then you see the top leader not do that, that usually causes problems. People will get the impression that the rules or the guidelines, the culture that we try to establish does not apply. If it doesn't apply to them, why should it apply to me? So the most important thing for you as founders, as business leaders, as HR people, as thought leaders in your organizations is to be aware of the impact that behavior has on a day-to-day basis, and it starts with the top of the organization. Second layer beyond that are the people managers. Why? People stay with and leave organizations because of their managers. It's a lot of pressure, isn't it? But it's also a great opportunity for you as people managers to realize the impact you can have on your immediate team and beyond that. People will look up to you to adjust their own behavior and how they go about their daily work lives according to how you model it for them. And ultimately, once all those things are perfectly aligned, hopefully, culture really only comes to life through every single employee living it. All right, so really just to summarize the point, if there's one thing you're going to take away from me talking to you today, and I'll give you a few more examples in a second, is that behavior trumps bread and games above everything. What do I mean by that? Bread and games. Sounds a little bit derogatory. What I mean is the artifacts of culture that people often identify as the true culture really, but it really isn't. So people will often look to company benefits, company perks, all these fancy things that employers put out there as part of their branding, which obviously is attractive and interesting for people to look at and get excited about working at a certain place. Google, above all, is excellent at doing that. I call it bread and games because at the end of the day, it's a bit of a distraction. Martina already referred to that point earlier. What culture is really about is not these artifacts of culture that you see out there in different shapes and forms. It's about the behavior that people exhibit on a day-to-day basis. Now to get to a few examples. So I'll run through a few popular types of corporate culture that people seem to aspire to in general, and it seems pretty intuitive why. Let's kick off with the first one, high-performance culture. Everyone wants high performance. Why? High performance should lead to high output. Everyone wants to be part of a high-performance culture because they want to perform and get the organization to the next level. How do you actually get there? Now, getting back to my initial point of how do you build an organizational culture the way you want it to, and the first step being looking at what you already have as a basis, this is where it becomes relevant in hiring. So what you add to your DNA as an organization are the people that you hire and the ones that are already there. If you don't want an asshole culture, excuse my French, don't hire assholes. Above all, also don't be one. Now, these are some of the principles that we live at Billie. Another one also relates to hiring that we live and breathe every single day, and that really has been the cornerstone of the tremendous success we've had, especially over the past year with the organization, and that we see continue in the near future, is that we hire for talent, not for experience. What does that mean? Obviously, you need people with experience. And the easy way to get your organization to do a certain thing or have a certain capability that you believe will then push it forward into the next phase of its development is to hire people who have the experience to know how to do that stuff. But talent is way more valuable. Why? Because performance ultimately is not a matter of repeating what you already know. So if you can get someone who has talent, by the way, and experience, perfect. But if you had to pick one, go for talent. Because that's the people that will ultimately define your culture of continuous learning, of having drive, of living their ambition, of getting to the next level. Also related to performance culture, stretch goals. Here again, important distinction between a vehicle, an artifact of culture, and the actual behavior demonstrating it. So the vehicle might be something like an OKR structure and framework that you implemented in your organization. It's easy to think that's where things stop because, well, now you've got the OKR framework, everything is figured out. But no, what it really comes down to are the individual elements and how they're lived and brought to life every single day. And one of the important aspects is stretch goals. And it works perfectly once you already tick the box of hiring talented people, because that's exactly the type of environment where they strive in. Now, so this one I called culture of getting things done. Maybe it's like culture of velocity, speed, which becomes more and more important, especially in the startup industry, because things change fast. You gotta adapt. Competitors are coming up left and right. You don't have a lot of resources, but you still need to get a ton of stuff done. And this is a direct quote from my manager, co-founder of Billie, Christian Grobe. He always tells me, Marie, it's better to get it 80% right and get it off the ground now than get it 100% right in 100 years. So that kind of flipped my world upside down because I was under the impression that everything had to be perfect for it to be right. It had to be 100% there for it even, be considered to be near as good to where I actually wanted it to be. But him communicating this type of perspective to me and living it and showing me and proof every single day that that's exactly what he supports me in, that it's fine for things to not be 100% perfect, but to keep the velocity in the organization going, actually is what keeps the organization going and running at the speed that we need it to. Feedback culture. Another hot topic at the moment, since ever. Feedback is and should become a part of the company's DNA. Why? Again, here the distinction between the vehicles and artifacts of a feedback culture that people implement, which might be performance reviews, ad hoc praises and thank yous you can give to your colleagues. These are all nice and important, and means to really help embed a feedback culture into your organization. But ultimately, what they all refer to is people actually living feedback in your organization. So what that really takes is not just the founders, the execs, but above all the managers living feedback on a day-to-day basis. And again, it's easy to think that feedback for managers is mostly about giving it to their direct reports. What I found is even more striking and important is them actually requesting it. Having a manager go up to their report and ask them, hey, tell me how I can support you better next week. What should I be doing differently to help you do your job even better? That's invaluable in two ways. A, the feedback that they will actually get, and B, it opens a side of vulnerability, potential weakness, and trust, really, between the manager and the direct report. And it's the foundation it's really the foundation in terms of like the behavior they exhibit, that then employees, direct reports, teams will be able to witness, and through that really internalize what the culture in the organization really is. That you then on top also have performance reviews and all these other vehicles is great, but that's not the focus of what culture is all about. Last example, culture of safety. Again, direct quote from my favorite person in the world, my manager, and that's actually not a joke. I do think he's a great manager. I love working with him. It's okay to mess up. What I want from you is to be forthcoming with it and learn from it for the future. That's part of what makes a safety culture. A culture where people feel free and comfortable and safe to bring things up when they need to be brought up, rather than thinking they should be perfect all the time, figure everything out by themselves, and for things to potentially, fall off the table and end up worse than they could have been had people had the opportunity to fix it ahead of time. All right, now that I've raved about how much I love the organization I work for, Billie.io, look it up. If you want to be part of Billie's incredible culture, or know someone who wants to be or would be a great fit, do let me know. You can contact me at marie@billie.io. You can also look me up on LinkedIn, feel free to add me. And we're currently looking for people to join our organization and keep our culture growing and continue on the path of success. So if you know anyone or are interested in yourself for a recruiting lead, UI UX designers, performance marketing managers, sales account managers, product managers, a lot of managers in there, backend developers, and Salesforce developers, please do get in touch. Thanks for listening.
Que la famille.